Jonathan Hickman's X-Men saga continues with this week's Powers of 10 number 2. Does the hype train keep rolling along steadily, or have things gone off the tracks? Well, we'll talk about that a bit today. First, I want to mention what I'm drawing. Drawing some art here, originally by R.B. Silva for this title, Powers of 10. Drawing a profile of Magneto and a headshot of Sabretooth, direct from the cover. But, that's kind of the first thing I want to talk about, is you might say this issue of Powers of 10 has a bit of an issue with false advertising. A number of characters on the cover do not appear in this issue. So if you're a casual reader just picking this up because Sabretooth is on the cover and you want to see some Sabretooth action, bad news, nowhere to be found in the issue. Same for Toad or the White Queen. Magneto is in this issue as Moira McTaggart and Professor X come to Island M to recruit him for, their overall mission, their Keikaku. Who knows? All according to plan. How much of this is according to plan? Because if you've read the first issue or you know anything about this series, you know it takes place over hundreds of thousands of years. Is this just a long con the X-Men are putting together to defeat Nimrod and the Machine, Sentinel, and now I guess the Phalanx are involved? All these sort of extraterrestrial, robotic, or artificial intelligence villains. How much of this is according to Moira and Professor X and Cyclops and now Magneto and Apocalypse? Just throw them all in the pot, all according to their plan. At least for Magneto's part, we have to say he didn't seem to know much before Moira and Professor X filled him in on her previous lives, which were covered in the last issue. After that scene with Professor X, Moira, and Magneto, we flash forward 10 years to the X-Men's home base on Krakoa, where now Magneto, possibly the Ultimate Universe version of Reed Richards, the Maker, or it could be Professor X. I think we're still unclear exactly who this character is. And Cyclops are preparing to invade an orbital space station where they're putting together the master mold that will start making more Sentinels. So they got to put a stop to that. But it's still in the future. They're just planning for it this issue, which really leads me into one of my bigger problems with this issue is that things happen, but for a comic book, there's not a lot of visual action involved. And we can compare this issue to something like, well, why not compare it to the greatest selling X-Men comic of all time, X-Men #1 by Chris Claremont and Jim Lee, which starts with a similar sort of plot point to this issue where there are people seeking out Magneto at his home base. In X-Men 1, it's Asteroid M. In Powers of 10 2, it's Island M. But in the X-Men #1 issue, there's a bit more tension there. There's action, there's violence, these astronauts, Fabian Cortez and the other future acolytes getting stuck in space, and Magneto using his powers to eventually bring them in, save their lives. And then we segue from that to a Danger Room battle training sequence, pretty typical for X-Men. But there's nothing like that in this issue of Powers of 10. I think that's one of the biggest flaws, is that it's a lot of characters standing around and talking, not so much action, or very little action. We have the fallout of action from the previous issue, where the X-Men have got, they haven't gotten the information they need, but they have somehow found the index, the key that will help them find the information they need, which, if anything, reminds me most of the old David Cross joke, if you remember this one. Is this the line to get the beer, or the line to get the tickets to get the beer? The X-Men haven't gotten in line to get the beer yet. They're still in line to get the tickets to get the beer. And, going back to what, I don't want to tell anyone how to do their job, but typical screenwriting advice or writing advice, if you're writing a story like this, a narrative like this, is jump into the scene as late as possible. And I feel like we could have jumped into these scenes after these scenes have happened. Just give me the good bits. Give me the action. It's also, I would say, tough for casual readers. Again, if you're going to pick this issue up, hoping that, say, Mystique or Sabretooth are in it because they're on the cover and then they're not in it. And then also, there's no action. There's no superhero fights. That's a tough pill to swallow. That's a hard to swallow pill at $3.99 for this issue, where there is some compelling plot points set up for the future, but really, in my opinion, we should just have the action, the plots. spend so much time setting up for the action. And that leads into the last bit for this issue, which is several 100,000 years in the future. Whoever's left, the Nimrod of the future and the hive mind that's there, have now figured out, they've created some sort of hive mind that's gotten extragalactic attention from the Phalanx. So the Phalanx show up, to be continued, and that's it. You know, you can compare that to when I was a kid reading X-Men comics like Uncanny X-Men 316, 317, the Phalanx Covenant crossovers, where there was a lot more immediate tension and action within one issue, where we know Banshee comes home and for some reason, like, all the X-Men are acting strangely, and we find out within that issue, that single issue 316, that they're acting strangely because they've been taken over by the Phalanx, which is kind of like the Borg. You know, resistance is futile of the X-Men universe. And there's just a lot more that goes on in those 90s comics if you compare those to the X-Men comics of today. Now, again, it's nice that this is coming out on a weekly basis, so I don't have to wait too much longer to get the next chapter, but I'm really getting the sense that the next chapter should have been this chapter. So I'm going to keep reading. Let me know in the comments if this is something you're picking up, if you're reading the current X-Men stuff, House of X and Powers of 10, and if you're liking it. Or if, like me, maybe you're feeling a little disappointed, a little let down by the current developments. Either way, I'm curious to hear what you think. And also, if you're doing any X-Men art yourself, let me see it. Post a link to it. Besides that, you know, as usual, what do I always say? If you like the video, smash that like button. If you're not subscribed yet, why not? Hit that subscribe button, tap the bell for notifications, and if you're an artist yourself, remember, the only way to become a better artist is to keep drawing. You gotta draw every day. So until next time, everyone, keep drawing.